Welcome to Ecclesia Principles, a biblical strategy for believers to engage in God's design for government with Ray Eppard.
Hello, glad you could join us again today. We're looking at scriptures relative to the birth of Christ and how they relate to government. Now, last couple days we've been looking at Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 and 7. I actually want to go back to verse 6 again today to examine something, because this verse 6 actually puts some responsibility on you and I. Isaiah 9:6 says, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." Now, at this point, we understand from the New Testament that we are called the body of Christ. We are his body. He is the head of the church. If you read Ephesians chapter 1, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, those are two passages that get into that and make references to those things. Christ is the head over all things to the church. And then we're all a part of the body. Members in particular, we're all different. You know, just like our body has a lot of different parts. We're not all the same, but we're all a part of one body. Now, here's the thing. He says in this verse, and the government will be upon his shoulder. The government. You see, again, Matthew 28, all power has been given unto me in heaven and in earth. At that point, what part of Christ, and I'm thinking two parts here, the head and the body, which part are the shoulders in? The shoulders are in the body. You see, if you would, we have a responsibility to do our best. Now, this is not a theocracy in this sense. It's not the church overtaking government. But as believers, we have a responsibility to be engaged in government. The government's going to be on his shoulders, part of his body, to bring the nation that we live in into as much alignment with God as we possibly can. You see, the scriptures tell us when Jesus judges the nation, he uses this term: there will be sheep nations and there will be goat nations. At that point, it is our responsibility as a part of the body of Christ, because the governments belong to him. The governments belong to him. Let me repeat that. The governments belong to him. If you saw someone breaking into your neighbor's house and taking something, would you act in some way? Would you call the authorities? Would you dial 911? Or depending on the situation, would you do something to address it? Because they're taking something that belongs to your neighbor. If you would, the governments belong to Jesus. And at that point, there are people that have no relationship, no love for Christ, no love for his principles, and they are trying to direct nations, some in our nation, other nations as well, but let's deal with our nation. At that point, do we sit idly by, and then when the time comes, and if you would, the neighbor gets home and find out he's been stolen from, then the police come over, did you see anything? And, you know, I'll use a Ray Stevens line, yeah, I did. Yeah, I saw him. Well, why didn't you do anything? You see, at that point, when you sit back and you do nothing, the law enforcement will certainly have a dim view of you. Your neighbor who owned it will have a dim view of you as well. If you would, I believe that's one reason that the scriptures say that there will be those who are ashamed at Christ's coming. Why? Because they sat back and did nothing. They sat back and didn't do anything to advance the kingdom. They let his kingdoms and his nations be stolen and did nothing. Now, we're not in this alone, and especially in a democratic republic like ours, then it's not just our voice alone, but the government is on his shoulders. From his standpoint, he expects us to do something. God bless you.
You've been listening to Ecclesia Principles with Ray Eppard. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook on our Ray Eppard pages. This program was brought to you by Victory Worship Center and World Outreach. Services Sunday 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, 200 Hammond Lane, Stanton, Virginia.